Hi guys, happy Sunday. How's everyone doing? I can see there is one person here and I don't know who it is. Well, just feel free to say hi, hellos in the chat and we will begin very, very shortly. I'm going to give this a few seconds for people to come in, get notified. But yeah, let me know in the chat who's here, and we will have a fun time painting today. Also, let me know if you cannot hear me, but I'm assuming you can. That's okay. Okay, so this, I made today's exclusive live available to everybody because it's my birthday month. So here's hoping that, you know, if you can't join, then you can at least just tune in later on whenever you're free, or just watch for now, whatever suits you on your schedule for this Sunday. I just saw a message from Jetty. Thanks, Jetty. Happy birthday month, Claris. Jetty here. Thanks, Jetty. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slowly start walking through supplies. Most of you know my supplies already that we've been using over the past few months, I should say. But I am introducing something new today because this is a special live. And that is going to be this brush by Princeton. For those who follow Jenna Rainey, I believe she collaborated with Princeton and created they created this brush based on her loose florals and her loose artwork. And I cannot wait to use it. I waited for this live to use it, and so I'll be using it for the first time over here. And it is part of the Velvetouch series. It is a Filbert brush, and it is a number 12. Look at that. Look at that brush. It's beautiful, I know. I've kept all the other Velvetouch brushes handy over here as well. All the four. The round 8, round 4, angular. I might not end up using them all, but just have them here. I have the Neptune number 6 and then the Heritage number 1 in case we need it for details. For colors, we're using the regular Mei Liang Paul Rubens. I'm just really loving their bright colors and the kind of results you can get with it. This is what we had done last month. And for the book, or for paper, I'm using my Etcher sketchbook. And that's it, guys. Yeah, so today we are going to go loose florals again, and I'm going to try and simplify the process. So over here with last week's, my whole idea was we're painting this together, go ahead and paint it at the bottom. I don't know if anyone did that or not, because I didn't really get any messages or any images of folks who did that. But I hope you will end up trying that because it would be really pretty to see how it kind of comes full circle. But for today, we're going to do more of a loose pattern and kind of just paint all over. And by all over, I mean leaving a little bit of white space in between as opposed to making it a bunch. Let me see how I can stick to that plan. Usually I have a plan and then I end up not sticking to it. Oh, I need a palette. So I'm going to use this palette over here and fluctuate between that palette and then also the palette that's part of the Mei Liang. Let me also adjust my screen so you can see more of it. Less of my laptop in the way. And I think this is good. So now you can see me mix. You can see my brushes. I've got my water handy on the side and I have my paper towel over here. So because the brush is so thick, we're going to have to do some, we're going to have to mix quite a bit of water, which is fine. And let's talk about colors really quickly. I'm very much feeling the whole combination that we used previously, which was the purples, using the purples, and then using some pink with the orange. And so we're going to go with that. But for the, we're going to try and add a little bit of white flowers or white florals with hints of pink. So what I will do with the pink is, so let's go with the, Scarlet, and I'm going to have the Van Dyke's Brown, a very muted, diluted version of it, and we're going to have use that for our whites, and then throw in some of the Scarlet to kind of give it a nice pinky feel. But I'm really gravitating to the magenta too. I pick Scarlet because I very rarely pick it. I always fluctuate between the rose red and magenta for some reason. They just stand out to me the most. But we'll use Scarlet, challenging myself. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to start off with this brush, and we're going to start mixing. Let's start mixing the Van Dyke's Brown. And so that, for me, is the third last color, which is right there. I'm just going to get that on here. Really mix that up. And obviously this brush, it's a number 12. It's holding a lot of water, as you can imagine, I'm sure. And then I'm going to keep the number 6 handy to get in some of my magenta into the loose or the light color. So magenta is 1, 2, 3. Sorry, not magenta, Scarlet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's right here. Let's just get that mixed up nicely. So here's the thing. Because I'm going light, and this is a detail you guys need to pay attention to. Pay attention to my details because this really helps in your process when you're painting. If we're going super light and diluted with our first color, if we want the second color to kind of give us a nice bloom, this needs to be more color, less water. And you got to play around with the proportions that way. Because if we've got pooling water from the base, which is, you know, less color, more water, and then you go in with the same consistency, what you're going to get is not a very pretty blend. And we want to have a pretty enough blend for something like this. So we'll do it this manner where we're doing a light stroke, then going in with the dark strokes, the pop of color, and then we'll flip over and do it the other way where we're going dark color and then going in with light. Okay, so here we go. Move that to the side, and let's start off with doing our petals. I'm going to do it over here. So I said middle. I don't know how I'm going to be able to control the size of these flowers, but here we go. 1 stroke, 2 strokes, and then a third one. And this gives me that organic shape. So I did 3 strokes to kind of help me build an organic shape for my flower. Now, because you can't quite see it as clearly because it's so light, what I'm going to do is add some of that red in here right away. And I think I'd like to add some of that happening from the top and just push it down to the bottom. And then just allow it to sort of bloom at this point. Now, if it's not giving you a nice enough bloom, what I suggest is taking another brush and just lightly helping it along. And kind of going around the edges and just helping it disperse. So kind of like that. And we're going to add this, we're going to do this detail again, but this time we're taking the same color the light color on this brush. And we're going to add another stroke here. And I want to lightly touch the red, get some of that scarlet happening within this, and just add that in. And so this way now I'm getting a gradual blend into this next petal. And then we continue doing the same thing for this petal happening here. And I'm going to get a little bit more of that Van Dyke brown. But I love the blending that's happening between the scarlet and the Van Dyke brown. I think it's pretty. You get that idea of it's like a white flower, but you've got hints of pink within it. And now we're going to do the bottom petal here. So I'm getting more of that color. At this point, I've not really washed off my brush, so some of the red has diluted or mixed in with the brown, and that's fine. We're doing a very loose style of floral. I'm going to get some of that red, and I'm adding it to the center here. And I want the reason I'm adding a little bit of that darker red here is because I want it to sort of look cohesive and tied in nicely with what we did at the top, this main petal. So I'm just adding a couple of strokes to sort of really have that blend in. And the longer you wait for things to dry and then go in with your stroke, what will happen is you'll notice the bloom is a little less loose and a little more controlled. And then I'm just fluffing the sides off by just using the side of my brush to sort of just add a couple of strokes. And because these bottom ones here with the white space end up looking like they are layers, I'm just adding a little bit of the pink within it so it can bloom in and do its thing. So that's our whole flower in a nutshell. Always stand up and have a look and see what things look like. So if you need to sort of move color around to create more balance within your flower, that would be helpful at this point. I'm going to use my number 4, and we're going to get some of the, I want a yellowish center. So I'm going to mix between the, what's this color? Is it burnt sienna? No, it is yellow sienna. So between yellow sienna, and this is like a dark brownish, yellowish color, and I'm just lightly dabbing to the center. And then I'm going to add in, washing it off, dabbing on my paper towel. I'm going to get some of my yellow ochre and throw that in as well. And now you'll find if your scarlet is still damp, you'll get a pretty bloom happening within the scarlet, and that is okay. This is what the flower should end up looking like. You want to add more fluffing just to sort of give it a nicer, fuller look. You can totally just add a couple of dabs here and there, but allow the color to seep in and do its thing. This is where your florals will shine, when you just allow the watercolor to bleed and bloom. Okay, so let's move on and do one more flower of a similar nature, or similar in nature, and then we'll add some greenery and some smaller flowers and such. This next flower, I think I'll do it facing downward. And like I mentioned, let's swap the technique. So let's start off with the dark red and then go in with the lighter color to help it bloom. And we're exploring 2 different techniques. And I've done this in a lot of my videos, but it never hurts to repeat and try, and repetition always helps. So I've washed off the brushes. I'm going to use the number 6 to get the scarlet. Actually, no, number 6 to get the Am I right? No, actually the colors would have been the same for the brushes. We're just adding the scarlet first, so my bad. Here we go. So first, because I want this to sort of face downward, I'm going to go ahead and actually, before I put this down, I want to make sure I have some of that Van Dyke brown on my brush. So then this way I can just go in right away. So again, consistencies. Let's talk consistencies. This needs to be, I got the color directly from the color cake, and that's just so it gives me a nice bright color. Then this is more watered down. It should help it flow. At least that's the plan. So facing downward, I'm going to go ahead and do a stroke like that. And I'm holding my brush at an angle. And we'll do the same thing that we did in the beginning in terms of, you know, doing 3 strokes to get our petal. I dipped my brush in water so I can get a lighter version of this color. And I'm going to keep dipping and create more petals on the side, leaving white space. And then we're going in with this brush to sort of help things bleed and bloom. So let's just add a couple of strokes in here to sort of help things along. These are the background petals. And I think this should be enough. Now we go in with this brush and help things along. So if you need to like put your brush sideways to sort of really get a thinner stroke in, do that. Notice the white space I'm getting. I'm kind of using whatever mix I end up getting on this brush, and I'm sort of helping things along. Again, white space is so important. So make sure you are leaving white space as you're doing these, and you're not losing your white space. And then I'm just going to add the side of my brush to kind of get tiny little details in here in between, and kind of really pulling this center petal downward, just using the brush to kind of give me that jaggedy center. Okay, this brush is divine when it comes to doing these things. I'm going to add just a little bit of a stroke here to kind of close that up. And then as we're doing these outer petals, just, you know, again, white space. And like maybe touch another stroke with the color, allow it to bleed into this. That's the whole idea when it comes to getting really pretty and loose florals. So I love this. It just looks big, bold, and beautiful. And now we're going to go in and get some of the yellows that I spoke about previously using the number 4. We're going to start off with our yellow sienna and then go into yellow ochre. Is it yellow sienna? Yes. So this is my center right here. I'm just doing a little light dab. And then the yellow ochre. And then feel free to adjust, just like we adjusted with the first flower, feel free to adjust a little bit of the strokes that's happening here. So take the number 4, you know, move some color around if you want to, get some nicer looking jaggedy edges if you want to, really emphasize that white space happening. Take time to really stand up, look at your work, and figure out where you want things to sort of change and how you want things to look. And then once you're good with that, we move on. And so I'm good with that. We're going to move on to the next phase. And here we're going to do our, I want to get into some greens. So let's add, I'm going to go with the colors that I like. So I'm going to start with the olive green. and then possibly team it up with some of the tree green, and let's see how that goes. I think the yellow green will be a bit too bright. So let's start off with the olive, and I'm going to start off with this brush. Actually, no, you know what? I'll keep this brush handy. We're going to do exactly like we did with the flowers. We'll use this brush for the base and then go in and add details with this. So light with the big brush, dark with this one. So where is my olive green, which is right next to this guy here. So I'm just lightly dabbing, and then I want to add it onto my palette here. I'm going to see what that looks like. I know I had some of that brown on there. So it's a bit too browny. So washing off the color from my brush. I think I had some of that brown left over on this. That's why it's looking that way. Put that on. Oh, that's better. I added some on my palette here. That's better. And then just dipping brush in water because I want the consistency to be about like 70-30-ish or 80-20 even. And now we're going to use the full width of the brush to add some big leaves, and then we're also going to use the side to kind of add in some smaller looking leaves. And let's start off with doing one. I'm going to add one just here first because it's a little bit damp. So I'm using the side and I'm just kind of adding 2 little strokes. I want to add a line happening or a stroke happening here. I wanted to pull that red into the green here. That was the idea. And you can see this is a very light sort of green and a bright green. So I'm just touching the areas that are damp first. Lightly getting that in. Adding some additional olive green here to these. Adding a line. Sideways, adding some leaves. Adding a stroke here because you guys know I like my little flowy looking dancing leaves, I should say, not flowy. I think that should be good for now. Let's go in with a darker hue at this point. I'm just getting a little bit of fluffing type elements there. It's great. I'm going to get the angular brush and let's get, what was the second color I said we were doing? I think I said tree green, which is right there. And so now at this point, it's sort of kind of dried up a little bit, but it's still damp enough so we can go in and add more leaves around it, or just adding a darker hue within it or a second hue within it. This looks very, very bright. I might adjust it and add a little bit of another hue within it. You can see how bright it looks. So I'm going to add some of that Van Dyke brown to it. Oh, this was the color. And so it kind of looks like this, which looks like a darker version of our olive green, which is great. So I'm just adding these elements and we're going to sort of extend, move that away, extend and kind of create more leaves. Adding some to the side of that guy there just because he was open, begging for some darker hues. And you can see how adding the dark really makes things pop. You don't want to make it too crowded, so I'm going to leave that as is. Let's move on to this area here. And notice I'm holding the brush like this, so I'm kind of using the pointed edge and just drawing in or painting in our leaves. Kind of doing this all around. Notice the little dots that I've done there to kind of really give it that loose look. I'm going to add another thin sort of bit here. Have it overlap our big guy here. Feel free to overlap things. I wanted some of that color to flow into this just to kind of give it that looser look. And that's great. So we've got a curve there, we've got a curve here. We could add some in the center. So let's get some of that tree green, mix it in with some of that brown. More tree green so I can get a nicer green. I think it's a good enough contrast. So we've got great pops of bright or dark green, so I want to water this down. Maybe even mix it a little bit with some of the yellow ochre and watering it down, just kind of add a couple more of these. These guys here and there. And explore these brushes, like use the full width of it. Use just the tip, press it down. See, observe what sort of shapes you're getting. And the more you use it this way, the more accustomed you get to it, and then next time you pick it up, you feel a little more confident because you have experience and you know exactly what sort of details you're going to get if you use it. Okay, so I think this is fabulous. We're going to move on to adding, I just want to add like a stroke of color or something here for the green. Great. Bit too bright, so taking my paper dowel, I'm gonna dab some of that off. Perfect. Okay, so now let's add a little bit of small sort of pick-me-up flowers in between, and for that I had mentioned adding purple. So I think if we did some beautiful little buds using some of our fresh purple, I think that would go really well with the scarlet. Maybe even some of the violet red, or maybe just even going into the deep violet. Okay, let me start off and let's see where that takes us as we sort of progress. So for brush, let's use the Let's continue using the angular brush. I'm really liking the angular brush for this. I'm feeling inspired to use the angular brush for this. So, like I mentioned, fresh purple. Get some of my fresh purple right here. Mix it in over there. You all can see this. And what I'm going to do is keep the number 4 handy. So with just water, I can sort of spread the color around and get some nice effects. So let's start off with adding some of the petals for our main flower. And let me just dip this in water. Let's add some. Remember I said we're going to have it spread around, and once again it's a bouquet. Got lost. So here we go, using the tip, tallest point. I'm going to do 3 little strokes and then using the number 4. And I'm going to get a little bit of that very light version of the scarlet. And I'm just going to lightly add strokes next to what we just added. And so it kind of blooms into it and just kind of fix the shape of the petals as well, leaving white space in the center. And it's got a very pretty bloom. Now if you feel like you want to add a deeper hue to the center, which I think I want to, I'm going to get some of that violet, just using the tip of my brush, rubbing it onto, just getting color directly from the little color cake. And I'm going to do a little bit of a dab in the center. And we're doing it now because it's damp and it's going to give us a nice dark to light. And really open up the center, because now the eye goes from the center going outward. And if you want to extend some of this color and kind of just get into that one petal, so this way you can kind of see the direction of where that one petal is, you can kind of add those details in. And that's pretty much it. Fluff around if you need to. And then using the same watered down color that we have, you can just add more tinier flowers. I didn't swap out with the dark and light color here, but you can absolutely just, using your brush with no water on it, but just clean brush, just wipe off some color and just dab on your paper towel. That's also helpful. This way you can get a lighter version of the flower, and then you're going in with the center again. Just kind of helping it stand out a bit by doing these little techniques. Okay, so that's the general idea. Let's add a couple more of these, maybe some at the top here, but that would be in a very watered down version of it. So I'm going to do some here first before we go to the top. And notice how I'm like going very loose with it, just dipping my brush in water. I'm going to add a couple of dots here and there, maybe even around this area. I want to give that idea of there's flowers, but they're very like in the background and they're kind of mixing in with the green a little bit. Don't worry, it will dry off lighter, except for those will be a little bit more prominent. You can add a little bit of a center to this flower as well if you want to, or you can leave it. Watered down version of what I'm adding is a little bit of scarlet into that purple over there. I want to get a slightly different variant of it and add some fluffy details to it. Maybe even add some here, touching that just a bit. throwing it in. So it kind of like ties in nicely. So we've got some here kind of going here. Let's add, again, I keep dipping my brush in water because I want it to be lighter in these areas. Kind of looking gradual almost. Yeah, little goes a long way. And then just to sort of give some center details here, just a tad bit. Adding some of that color in there. Just dropping in little drops. Kind of make it pop a bit. And let's see. This is a very, very watered down version of the pinky purple that we have. So I'm like dropping in water almost to the side edges to kind of extend and pull the color, but also giving it that very loose sort of background flower effect. Very, very controlled, as you can see. Adding a little bit more of the scarlet sort of droplets in here as well. And it's just kind of getting, you're aiming to get pops of color. And that's, yeah, that's pretty much all you're doing. You're not even trying to perfect the flower. You're just harmonizing everything by adding these colors in. And yeah, you're going from like dark to light. So these are the lighter versions of it. And at this point, I'm going to do a little bit of a splatter. So I'm going to take some of that color, add a splatter there, and one here. Dip my brush in water so the splatter is lighter in color. Get some at the top. Dipping in water again to get a lighter version. So now we've got layers of the splatter happening. So dark splatter, light splatter, good enough variety of that happening in here. And then I think we're pretty much done. What I would do is let's get a little bit of that third leaf, not third, second leaf action happening. So I will get, which brush should I get? I want to use the number 1, but I think the number 1 will be too tiny. You know what? Let's use the number 1. I'm going to use my number 1 and let's get a little bit of the Van Dyke, no, not Van Dyke, Hooker's Green. Yeah, let's get a little bit of the deep Hooker's Green and use some of that. And I'm watering it down, obviously. I don't want it to pop out too much. And then just sort of lightly attaching. You don't have to do this step if you feel like you just want to leave them open-ended that way. And that is fine. I'm just adding a little bit of tiny detail. In this third variation of green, so we've got like an interesting sort of detail happening. And just very lightly I'm just adding blobs of green. You can even get some of the other green that we have and just sort of add it onto the sides. Just kind of spreading it around in like little color blobs. Just to kind of give it some interesting pop. So I start off with attaching them and then kind of lightly adding an extension and just sort of lightly dabbing to get some green looking leaves sort of on it. Just like that. Get a little bit, just a tad bit happening over here. Very controlled, very tiny, very slim because this is the #1 brush that we're using, so it's not overpowering in the least bit. And let me see, let me survey the lay of the land a little bit. I'm adding some of that green in between here, which also makes the center pop, or the division pop. You can even sort of curve along the shape of the petal, being a little bit intentional. So you're kind of faking the looseness here in this area. Again, kind of trying to lift that petal. I'll add a little bit of that green on this side here too. And we are almost done. Overlapping some of this here. I just want some overlapping leaves happening on this. So I guess I'm officially in my fluffing stage of things. And I want like a gradual dark to light happening here. So we've got a little bit of darker detail and then it goes lighter. Okay, and that's it. We're not going to do anything else to it. And that, here's what we have. Let me zoom in so you guys can see better. There we go. And this is perfect timing because now my battery is also dying. So hope you guys enjoyed this. I can't wait to see what you have done. So please post your pictures either on the Facebook group or on Patreon. And if you have questions about anything I've displayed on here, let me know. I'm happy to help. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. And I'm going to list the link for this brush as well if you guys are interested. I know there's a lot of ask for the Filbert brush, and I think they even sold out. So I'll list it in the description of this video. But thank you guys for joining me, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Have a lovely, lovely Sunday, and we'll chat soon. Bye!